When most people think of Dexter Morgan, they imagine the charismatic anti-hero from the TV series. Someone who, despite his dark urges, manages to earn a strange sense of sympathy from the audience. However, Dexter in the original books by Jeff Lindsay is a far cry from the more PG-13 version that we see on screen. Book Dexter is a deeply disturbing and disgusting serial killer, just like the real-life monsters whose horrific crimes haunt true crime literature. Now, the TV show obviously took a different approach, shaping Dexter into a character that audiences could relate to, at least in some ways. Essentially, the goal was to make him a bit more human, someone whose twisted moral code, killing those who only deserved it, like criminals, gave viewers just enough justification to root for him. But if you've ever read the books, you'd be shocked at the unsettling darkness of the original Dexter Morgan. The book version is the true character of Dexter, later adapted and heavily sanitized for television. In this video, I'm going to dive into the most revolting and twisted things Dexter does in the books, and trust me, it's not for the faint of heart. So honestly, let's just start with one of the most gruesome aspects in the books, which is Dexter sometimes dismembers victims while they're still alive. The best way to paint this picture is literally by comparing him to Art the Clown from the Terrifier series. Now, I can't show clips from those movies due to their extreme graphic nature. It would instantly age restrict this video, but if you've seen any of the Terrifier movies, you would understand the level of horror we're talking about. Art the Clown possesses a supernatural ability to keep his victims alive while torturing them. While Dexter doesn't have this supernatural power that Art the Clown has, his methods in the book echo this brutality, because he intentionally keeps his victims alive while he slices off fingers, ears, and other body parts, all while they remain conscious and suffering, just like Art the Clown, and also like Dr. Danko in the books as well, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So reading the books will undeniably change your perspective on Dexter. This version of him is not a misunderstood vigilante, but a genuine serial killer. Yes, he still kills criminals, but he's nothing like the TV show version at all. He is a cold-blooded murderer who kills purely for his own enjoyment. Unlike in the show, where Dexter occasionally shows flashes of sympathy and even remorse, the book version is devoid of humanity whatsoever. Dexter has completely no feelings whatsoever. He is truly a psychopath in this book. The show also allows Dexter to form emotional connections, even feeling conflicted about some of the people who end up on his table. The books, on the other hand, strip away from this facade, leaving us with an unfeeling predator who relishes in his twisted work. When I first learned that Dexter shared similarities with a character as horrifying as Art the Clown, I found myself strangely drawn to this version of the story, and honestly prefer Dexter in the books. And let me explain why. The TV show's portrayal of Dexter is crafted to make us like him, which, I mean, it makes sense. It's a show, and viewers need a reason to keep watching, and by liking the main character, you'll keep watching the show. So it's completely understandable to make a successful show. But this likability comes with a dangerous side effect. We find ourselves accepting, even justifying, Dexter's actions. We forget that in the real world, a person like Dexter would not be a hero. He would be a monster. This brings to mind the anime Death Note and its protagonist Light Yagami. So Light believes he is delivering justice by killing criminals, but his god complex leads him down a dark path. He begins to kill not just criminals, but also innocents, FBI agents, and even his greatest rival, L, all to maintain his vision of himself as a god, and also his innocence, but primarily God. Similarly, Dexter, though he may not see himself as a god, he acts like one, deciding who lives and who dies. This is a dangerous power, one that no human should wield. The book's portrayal of Dexter serves as a reminder that we should never sympathize with the serial killer, whether fictional or real. And it only gets darker from here. Like, do you remember Aster and Cody, Rita's two children? They are portrayed as just regular kids, also traumatized by their mother's death, but ultimately, they're pretty innocent. However, in the books, they show early signs of sociopathy. Rather than seeking professional help or finding an alternate solution, Dexter takes matters into his own hands. He begins teaching them the code of Harry, the same twisted set of rules that turned him into the killer that he is currently. It's a cycle of history repeating itself. Just as Harry recognized Dexter's sociopathic tendencies and thought his only option was to harness them, Dexter now sees the same darkness in Aster and Cody and chooses the same path. But what does this mean for their future? If Dexter is the mentor, keep in mind this is book Dexter, what kind of monsters might Aster and Cody become under his guidance? The books leave us with an unsettling sense of doom, suggesting that Dexter's legacy of blood may not end with just him. Instead of breaking the cycle, he perpetrates it, raising a new generation of killers molded in his image. The books remind us that monsters often wear human faces, and the scariest part is when we find ourselves drawn to them. So if you think that you know Dexter Morgan, think again. The books show us who he truly is, an unrepentant killer whose darkness cannot be redeemed. And I get it, I've also found myself sympathizing with Dexter in the show. It's easy to do, and it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with us. Liking show Dexter doesn't mean that we'd actually support a real-life serial killer or that we're bad people. But what I'm really trying to say is that it's important to keep these things into perspective. No matter how much of an anti-hero he seems to be, Dexter isn't truly the good guy. It's okay to enjoy his character and appreciate the storytelling, but we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that his actions, if they were real, would be terrifying. The show does a great job of blurring the lines between right and wrong, but at the end of the day, Dexter is still a killer driven by his own dark urges. It's this complexity that makes him such an interesting character, but it also serves as a reminder that sometimes even the most likable characters can hide truly dark sides. And also, I wanted to talk about how James Doakes was treated in the books. And also, by the way, his full name wasn't even James Doakes in the books. His name is actually Albert Doakes. Yeah, Albert Doakes. Like, what? So in the TV show, dies in an explosion, but the books take his story to a much darker place. So in Dearly Devoted Dexter, Doakes is captured by Dr. Danko, a sadistic torturer who uses a method called the pieces of you. So Dr. Danko basically slowly cuts off his victims' body parts while keeping them alive, kind of just like Dexter did. He doesn't just want to cause pain, he wants to completely break his victims. By the time Dexter and the police find Doakes, he lost his hands, feet, tongue, eyelids, and more. He is still alive, but he's trapped in a broken body, fully aware of what's happened to him, but unable to do anything about it. The books make his suffering much more intense and drawn out. He survives the torture, but he is left severely disabled and unable to speak. So yeah, this is just some of the craziest stuff the book has gone into. It's just absolutely sinister. It's insane. But at the end of the day, I highly recommend the books, and if you want to check them out for yourself, go ahead. Yes, the books are pretty disturbing, but I'm glad that we didn't get a picture book.